William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to Move On Speaker of the Month at Madeleine's Restaurant, 3906 Lemmon Avenue, Dallas, Texas. Just one block north of Oaklawn and Lemmon Avenue on the west side of Lemmon Avenue. When visiting Madeleine's Restaurant, tell them you want to make your reservations to the next Move On Speaker date or call 214-521-1083.
Thank you. As you know, today our guest speaker is Mr. Craig Watkins. Mr. Watkins is a local hero of mine. Now you might ask, why would I say that? Being an activist and an agitator and someone who on occasion looks for reasons to get arrested, allegedly. Just allegedly. I say that because this man's quest and his mission in life is the very thing that lies at the heart of the progressive movement, and that's justice. Right or wrong? Right. Craig Watkins is homegrown. He graduated from Carter High School in Oak Cliff, and I live in Oak Cliff, so I'm real proud of that. He graduated in '86. He went on to graduate from Prairie View A&M University in 1990 with a bachelor's degree in political science. And he was part of the 1994 graduating class of Texas Wesleyan University School of Law. That was their first graduating class, so that's pretty fantastic, I think. And he won in the 2006 District Attorney election in 2006. He became the first African-American District Attorney, not just in Dallas, but in the whole state of Texas, folks. That's pretty remarkable. Kind of unbelievable. Mr. Watkins has secured a 99.4% conviction rate and has focused on prosecuting cases of child sexual abuse while working to resolve cases of wrongful conviction through the use of DNA testing and the review of evidence illegally withheld from district attorneys. Now, Paul said that, or I guess you said that overturning wrongful convictions definitely made a difference in the people that he got off of death row and out of prison, but actually it's all of us. You know, it's a great thing for all of us, not just those individuals. I'd like to present to you, and I'm proud to do so, Craig Watkins.
I'm going to pull this chair, but I'll probably sit down as we go through this conversation that we're going to have today. Thank you, first of all, for having me come out and talk to you. I guess you guys are not Cowboys fans. They're playing different Broncos today, and I thank you because I'm a Cowboys fan. I think they're going to lose, and they're going to lose big. But I need you guys to, and obviously I'm speaking to a crowd of individuals who basically hold the same values that I do about what it means to be an American. And I'm going to get into the criminal justice thing in a minute. But what really amazes me is the fact that we have individuals who hold statewide office and they claim to be American. They claim to be those individuals who hold the values of what it means to be an American. And so let's just look at that. Let's think about that. When we go all the way back to when this country was formed, those individuals who stood up and fought, our friends over across the ocean, because they wanted to be represented. Taxation without representation. They wanted to have the opportunity to define their own destiny. Those individuals were progressive. And here we are in this group of people who are progressive. who want to make this country all it is and all it should be. But yet, all of those individuals who claim to be members of the Tea Party and conservative slow things down. Think about if we were starting this country back in the 17 and 1800s. If we had that same faction, then we would not even exist. But for those individuals who were progressives, those individuals who threw the tea in the ocean were progressives. But yet, for some reason, we've lost our way. Now, I got elected in 2006 and went on this progressive model of what it means to dispense justice. The most basic tenet of what it means to be an American. If we can't get it right from the standpoint of dispensing justice, then we can't get it right on the small deals. If we're convicting folks that didn't commit crimes, taking their freedom, then what does that say about who we are? And so I am grateful that the citizens of Dallas County elected me to be the District Attorney of Dallas County, so I could go back to those constitutionalists who said no taxation without representation. Those folks who stood up and they were progressive and said that we want to create a whole country outside of the folks across the ocean that says that if you want to run certain things, you do it because of the will of the people. And unfortunately, over the last few years, because we've elected a person of color to be the President of the United States, that we've had this uproar of individuals who say that, well, we need to be conservative. Not so fast. Slow it down. Let's go back to how things were. Just because of the color of the guy's skin? We see the same thing here in Dallas County. When you have all of these progressives that are being elected, that happen to look differently than what we've traditionally had. Slow it down. Let's stop for a minute. It's too early for that. And so we are on the cusp of what it means to be an American guy. And so I would ask you, as we go through this process, to look at what's going on. You guys were talking about money in politics. Well, money plays a big role in slowing things down. Because those people that hold the purse strings, and they've made their money off of how things have been for the longest time, don't want to see a change. But it takes people like you who will stand up and say, no, you've made your money. You've done well, but you have not represented us as a people. We've given you the opportunity in this country to be an American, to live out the American dream. But for whatever reason, as we've progressed, you want to slow it down because you don't want to get with the program. And the program is we are moving forward. And so as a DA of Dallas County, and I think what's sexy is the fact that we have determined that there are people in prison for crimes they didn't commit. And over the last few years, we've exonerated all these folks, which is great. And I think that may be the reason that you called me to come and talk to you. But the reality is that's just one piece of the puzzle. That's just one small piece of the puzzle. We can free the innocent. But the larger piece is justice. What does that mean? You know, when I grew up in Dallas, and justice meant, and what I saw as a kid is that if you're of color and you're poor, well, you didn't get treated the same. Didn't care about who you were in your neighborhoods. It meant even larger than that is if you look in the southern sector where people of color mostly live, there's no development. but there's development all over in those different areas of Dallas. But that's where the money goes. That's not progress. In order for us to make this work, we have to allocate the resources that we have, the tax dollars that you pay, to those areas so every neighborhood will have quality justice, to make sure that police come out when you call them, to make sure that when they go to court that they're treated just like a guy from Highland Park. There's no difference. You guys remember here recently when I was called into question as to whether or not I did a favor for a donor because a rich guy from Highland Park got indicted for mortgage fraud. That shocks my conscience that that issue would be called into question because a rich guy who had all the resources, who paid people off, who come in and say that the DA is corrupt because he committed a crime and he got indicted? Are you kidding me? Perfect example of your organization and progress. We have the opportunity to make things right. At least as long as I'm DA in Dallas County, we have the opportunity to make things right. You commit a crime, you do the time. If you don't, you won't find yourself on the wrong side of the law. And so we get a guy from Highland Park who committed a crime. He didn't want to be indicted. So he goes and talks to the judge and says, "Judge, hold that DA in contempt." But you know what's really interesting to me is that it took a Republican judge from Wichita Falls to come in and say, "Stop. This is wrong." And so I heard you guys talk about Democrats and Republicans. That there are some good Republicans out there too. Some good people who follow the Constitution. And so as we move forward, as we progress, we need people in office that are not beholden to the folks that are writing checks for their campaign, but are beholden to the people who actually go into the polls and vote for them. And those, I'm going to tell you something. I had a tailgate party yesterday there was a Cotton Bowl game, Prairie View Grambling. I went to Prairie View. Obviously, I was rooting for them. But there were folks picketing me because they say I don't convict police officers that kill people. And it took me a second to catch myself because I was mad. I was upset. They were picketing me. But what I really started to pay attention to is that there was a mother out there who lost her son because he was killed by a police officer. And so we need leaders like that who can put aside their own personal feelings, because that was personal to me. Not only did they picket in front of my little tailgate, they came to my house. And so that hurt my feelings. My kids are going to school and they're picking at my house. But the reality is I had to pay attention to that mother who lost her son. And she's using everything that she has to make sure that justice is served for her son. And I think the folks that we have leading this state have lost sight of what it means to be an elected official for their own personal benefit and their own personal issues that they want to push forward, when it's not about us, it's about you. And so we've done a lot in Dallas County. We have all these programs that we are pushing forward. One of those is, we have a community prosecution unit where we go out into the communities and neighborhoods to talk to you about what you need. I won't go into detail, but you got brochures. And so what we are going forward with is growing people. Not growing the DA's office, but growing people. And those people mean that what can we do to make you better? What can we do to reduce crime in your neighborhood? And so we want to grow, just like you guys want to grow and make a difference in Dallas County, and hopefully at some point in the state of Texas. And so as we move forward, we're going to grow these individuals who make a difference. It's not about prosecuting people that commit crimes. That's easy. Our conviction rate, as it was said, is almost 100%. That's easy. The hard part is making sure those folks don't come through the criminal justice system in the first place. The hard part is making sure there's not a victim. Because when we prosecute someone, no one wins. There's no winner. There's a victim, and there's a person we have to take their freedom. And even in the worst cases, we have to take their lives. Who wins? So how do we change that? To make sure that people don't, in the first place, commit crimes. That is progress. A district attorney's office that says that we want to make sure that people don't commit crimes, so you don't become a victim. And so that's the legacy I want to leave and what I'm going to do as a district attorney in Dallas County. And before I stop, I want to let you know, look, you guys have questions for me, don't be afraid to ask me anything, because we're an open book, and I'm ready to answer your questions at this point. Thank you.
Okay, so this opens up.
What kind of programming do you have to reduce, I have trouble pronouncing this word, recidivism?
Yep.
Okay. Could you tell us about the program?
Well, we have a lot of programs in our community prosecution unit. We're actually going to high schools and junior high schools to deal with the kids, and on an educational level. So the thing is when I start talking about this privately with folks, the leaders in our education and even in our community that fund government, they were saying, Craig, why are you getting involved with education? Why do you want to make an issue of that? Well, most of the people that we prosecute are uneducated, so it's a criminal justice issue. They're not educated. It's a criminal justice issue. And so if we can fix that component, then it's less likely that we'll have those folks that are uneducated come through our system if they get an education. People that are educated, they get jobs. And they, they're not criminals. And so for me, I feel like we're on the cusp of what it means to prevent crime if we can go into our schools, not just in the high school level, but even on the college level, to make sure our folks are educated, because if they are, then I won't see them at the courthouse.
Yeah. Watkins, what's your position on decriminalization of drug possession and drug use, as opposed to people who are actually trying to sell drugs and make a lot of money? We pack a lot of people in our prison system who are essentially addicts. What is your position on that?
Hey, you know what? Firsthand, I've had family members that have been addicted to drugs. It's just par for the course. They're not criminals. They're basically going out and supporting a habit. And I think our drug laws are antiquated. It made sense back when Nixon decided that he was going to have the war on drugs. It got him elected. It kept him elected. Reagan came in and did the same thing. But the reality is we've come to the standpoint of where we cannot afford to put people in prison for an addiction. And at some point in the state of Texas, we're going to realize that. But it takes folks to lead us, not just from my little seat as DA in Dallas County. You know how many counties there are in Texas?
300.
Over 300. You're going to have to elect someone statewide that's going to change that dynamic and basically say, no, we're not going to lock these addicts up. It doesn't make sense financially. You know how much money we spend to imprison a person in Texas? $64. How much did we spend to educate a person in Texas? $8 a day. But the conservatives say that they have good government. Doesn't make sense. And so this is our opportunity right now. Our opportunity to change things. It'll take people like you to do it. You had the question, yeah.
Well, the question should have been, what was the score yesterday?
Oh, I didn't, I left at halftime, but I think that, Prairie View won,
What was the score?
It was,
I think
it was
31.
53, but not,
Yeah, I think 31-3.
yeah. You know, I was in college at Prairie View, we never won a game,
Well, I know that.
and they had the longest losing season
That's right.
ever. They hold the record for that,
Yeah.
and so it's great to see that they're actually winning games, so, yeah.
So it wasn't about you, it was about them.
It was about that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm a mobile assessor for a psychiatric hospital, and I deal with all kinds of patients. I know in Texas that our prisons or jails have become de facto mental institutions for people. I know the state is abysmal when it comes to funding mental health services for people
Yeah.
below a certain level. Is this an issue that you had to deal with?
Yes.
And what do you see happening, and what can change it?
You guys are gonna have to change, I'll tell you. Every morning, I get an email from a person that works with jail population. How many people are in Dallas County Jail? Because we're spending in Dallas $64 a day to house them. And so I get an email every day, you gotta reduce the number of folks in jail. And some of those folks, and the majority of them, are mentally ill. And so how do you reduce that? It's, well, let's plea bargain them out, give them a deal, get them out of our jail as quickly as possible, but they'll be back 2 days later. It's just, we're spinning our wheels. And so if we don't focus on the root cause of not just mental illness, but all crimes,
Right.
then we're just wasting money.
I will interject real quickly that a lot of these people are too sick to live by themselves, and their families cannot take care of them. I've
Yeah.
seen 80-year-old mothers taking care of 54-year-old mentally ill people, and they just can't do it anymore. But there's no safe places for them, like group homes, or decent institutions where they can be taken care of. I'm not talking about the old days of institutionalization, but there's nothing there.
But that's something we should create, because it would be cheaper.
Yeah.
You know, you look at taxpayers, and, I'm a fan of CNBC and investing, and I want to get a return on my investment. In my retirement, I want to get a return. So of course you need to ask the folks that are in power, are you getting a return on your investment? When we're housing these folks that are going to come back 2 days later, does that make sense? You pay taxes, and the folks that are in position, they decide how those taxes are going to be allocated. Are you getting a return on your investment?
Not us. Somebody is. The prison is.
That's right.
Industry.
The prison industrial complex, yeah, they're getting a return on their investment.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the
But-
problem is there's no facilities, there's no help out there if you do not have resources, which is insurance. I'm not sure what the new
Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, Affordable Care Act, how that addresses mental illness, and that's the big problem.
But it takes you guys to come out and say, I want to change our leadership statewide.
Do you see anything happening in that regard in the state, or at least in the county?
Well, the county, well,
Oh, D. Davis?
you got somebody running for governor who will change that. But the pundits say she can't win. But they said I couldn't win.
No, they didn't say you couldn't win, they said it was impossible you could win.
Yeah,
They were wrong, weren't they?
they were wrong. So,
She's gonna win too.
That's right.
you guys need to focus on that, and we need different leadership in Texas. And so this is our opportunity, this election cycle. Progress and change comes from those places we most unlikely expect it to come from. So how about Texas becoming a blue state? People don't expect that to happen. But, you know, you look at the civil rights movement, they didn't expect that it would start in Alabama and Mississippi, but it did. And so here we are, Texas.
They wouldn't suspect that Obama got his initial start and impetus to decide to run from Dallas, Texas, or run Kirk.
Yeah, so here we are. So what you guys gonna do? What y'all gonna do? You got folks in place now who are carrying the water and who have the backbone to stand up for us. But we need you guys out there to go to the ballot and make a difference. There's only so much we can do. Without y'all, it's a moot cause. Yes, sir.
I'm a fan of the Constitution, and all kinds of people, progressives and conservatives, all point to the value of constitutional principles and founding fathers. But when it was brought to my attention that like 6% of the population could legally vote for George Washington, that as we allowed people, women, for example, other groups that weren't permitted to vote, but it seems to me we're slipping backwards. That maybe it was like in the 1980s we reached our peak of who could vote, and now with like voter suppression, but also with income inequality. Now it's not just that you can vote. When you're able to buy an election, just everyone having the vote isn't enough. Somehow they've got to be educated and willing to vote. So how do I look at this positively? I guess that's my question. It seems like we're sliding in the wrong direction.
I think it's a natural progression. I don't think we are. I think it's a natural progression of when we are implementing laws that certain people that are in power and the corporations don't like. This is just a natural progression, and in order for us to defeat it, it's to make sure that people do have the right to vote. And then we'll put those folks in their place. That you can't do this in our country. It's unfortunate that they've gotten somewhat of a stronghold in what they consider conservative states to say that we're going to have these voter ID laws that come into place, and we're going to say that you can't vote if you don't have A, B, or C, which in my estimation is somewhat of a poll tax. And they want to keep people from voting. That's not American. Those Tea Party folks, they're not American. It's silly. You know, over the last 10 years, you know how many voter fraud cases we've had in the state of Texas? 26. And they didn't have anything to do with folks going to the polls. It had to deal with mail-in ballots. You know, most of the mail-in ballots, where they come from? Republicans. There's no voter fraud. And so this is just to keep certain people from voting. And so it comes down to you. What are you guys going to do to make sure you have the ballot?
Mr. Duran and I had a chance to go to North Lake College and meet Linda Harper Brown.
Yeah.
I was stunned at the lies that spewed from that woman's mouth. I think she was talking to college kids. Voter ID, she addressed it. But like you said, the mail-in ballots, she says they're, out of her mouth came the words, they're not counted. And plus the fact, so Mr. Duran and I thought, well, we should tell everybody just to mail in your ballot, at least you know it's But my question is, we were on the voter ID, and she tried to blame the Democrats for it. Yes, because Mr. Santi Esteban in 1995, when my daughter was going to college, he wanted to pass a bill in Austin too, because we knew back then, well, I'm from Corpus Christi, we knew back then when you counted the numbers, there was more voting numbers than there were actual people registered to vote. And you know, my father was illiterate, But he figured it out, and Mr. Santiesteban, a Democrat from El Paso, figured it out. And they wanted to pass some kind of a bill. I don't really know, but I know it was in 1995. So, and I told this lady, Harper Brown, Representative Harper Brown, that how do we keep, I'm for voter ID, but I'm not scared of the illegals coming in and voting. I'm scared of the people from Iowa. These snowbirds, that's what they used to call them back then. Snowbirds from Iowa, Ohio, you know, that come in south to calm themselves, vote in our elections.
Well, I didn't know anything about that, but.
1995,
Yeah.
Santiesteban introduced the bill.
Now, I can tell you, there's no voter fraud. There's no voter fraud in Texas.
But he wanted to introduce a bill because the numbers didn't add up. So if we have voter ID in Texas, how do we prevent other people from the union coming to vote in our election? I know I'm just asking the question in general. I just wanted.
Okay, you gotta give me a little bit more context of what you're asking. So you're saying the people in the union,
Ohio, you know, back then they used to call them snowbirds, people that came in from north, you know,
It's summer, winter here in
Yeah.
Texas.
The winter birds or something.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
before my time, man.
You know, just looking at the voting patterns in Texas, the major problem is not sufficient participation. In the last gubernatorial election, only 35% of the eligible voters voted. And so we have Rick Perry in the governor's office, basically 18% of the voters supported him, 17% opposed, the rest of the people stayed home. That's where our problem is. We just have to get more people involved.
And there are more Democratic voters in Texas. Understand there's actually more people vote Democratic. We'll go Democratic in Texas then.
I think people, whether they consider themselves Democrats, Republicans, or whatever, they have to show up.
Yeah.
Because if they don't participate in the process, we do get these kind of extreme candidates, Ted Cruz, who walk around and act like they represent everyone in Texas.
Well, somebody spoke up best. I was listening to Paul Hartman or one of those MSNBC or one of those things.
Yeah.
But what it is, he said, how the Tea Party got powered because they got involved with local elections, school boards, mayor, county.
This is
They
true.
got involved where we just tend to focus on the big elections.
Right.
And they knew it. That's how they.
Right. That's why I was saying we think elections are every 4 years, they think are every 2 years, because we think that only when a president is on the ballot is the time to come out, and we have to get past that. We have to start voting every time they open the polls.
Because you see what
whatever
happens,
it
if he
is.
got the kind of economists he had, you see what happens, you didn't vote for the top guy, but an economist, which is against everything progressive, and just out to destroy him.
Exactly.
They said both times they elected, their biggest focus is to make sure the one-termer. I mean,
So how do you, may I ask one more question? There was a very active college student there that his parents were Tea Partiers, and he was trying to ask Ana Reyes, how do I get my parents to stop voting against themselves, you know, against their own best interest? I said, she can't answer you the question, you'd have to go where?
I think it's simple.
People are beginning to become aware that the Tea Party is against us, Americans.
I think they all.
Well, I think it's simple. You know, if you look at, the Tea Party movement and what happened, what they did years ago was focus on small elections, state representative, city council. You got all these people in, and the next thing you know, they're running statewide, and they're winning. And so we have to do the same thing, is cultivate a team of individuals who want to move this country forward. And it's about school board elections, it's about city council, it's about local governmental, countywide elections. Because at some point, those people will progress to run the whole state. And so that's where the difference is made.
I was going to say, it's also about educating the voter in terms of maybe, putting, both candidates and then what positions they have on key issues. Because a lot of people, when they go to vote, really they don't even know. They just go by the name and that's it. It sounds good, or by political party or what have you. And, so that I know that happened with Ted Cruz. They would see a Hispanic name, and a lot of Hispanics voted for them, and now they don't. Now we don't like them, and so yeah.
Not what you expected,
Yeah.
What do you think about electing judges. When we have, I don't know, 50 or 60 on the ballot for this very low turnout.
42.
42?
This election,
It's very hard for the qualities of a judge to be known to very many people, which is really unfortunate. Having talked to a few judges and candidates, I realize it really does make a difference.
it does.
But having an informed electorate seems almost impossible when there are that many candidates.
Well, you guys got to pick up your game, because you don't want that in one person's hand. If you ask me, as District Attorney of Dallas County, who should be a judge, I'll give you my opinion, but it should it be based on what I say, or based upon the record? And so, do you want the governor to make a determination of who should be a judge? So it comes down to making sure the folks are educated.
So the alternative is worse.
It's worse, because you're gonna give that power to one person.
No.
You don't want that. I think we should elect judges, and they should stand on the record. And we gotta pay attention to what they're doing when they're on the bench.
I think Susan had.
Yeah. Mr. Watkins, when I take my husband to the VA, we go through a neighborhood. You mentioned the word victim, which inspires this question. We go through a neighborhood where many of the homes have decorative bars on the windows and the doors, and even the churches do. What can be done to help to uplift the neighborhood so that the neighbors feel safe in their own home and don't feel like maybe they've been victimized already and they put them up, or they might be victimized? What can be done to give the neighbors just a better feeling of safety in their own homes?
It comes down to allocation of tax dollars. You won't find that in the northern section of town.
I'm sorry.
You won't find that in the northern section of town, because those tax dollars have been allocated to those individuals. So why is there not an equal distribution of tax dollars when it comes to public safety? So they don't have to put bars on their doors. So that's a simple solution. Make sure that there's equity throughout Dallas County, or throughout the city of Dallas, when it comes to public safety, and there's not.
Now, are those the neighborhoods you go into when you say you want to go in and stress the importance of education to these kids?
And it comes down to
and you find it makes a difference in their lives and in the neighborhood?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. Yes.
Also, it's about neighborhood participation.
Yeah, they have.
If you don't want bars on your doors, then you get out there and you make sure that, like in other areas, and I tell everybody, if a crime happens at 9:10, at 9:15 in other communities, they're mobilized. We go to prayer meetings and have a meeting to discuss it. That's an issue. You don't want bars, you take on your neighborhood, because wherever you are, the criminal's not going to be. I'm going to ask a sensitive question, PA. There was a young lady who was Republican, first, and then she switched to Democrat, and now she switched back to Republican to run against you. What would make you think, help me out, because I'm very vehement against that, but I'm trying to figure out what would make her, and you may know some insight, you may not even have an answer for that. But it's the first time I'd like to recognize that we do have a judge with me, that Judge Etta Mullins, that's with me. She heard about you were going to come, and she's one of the judges out there in the trenches. She's developed more programs. I worry her at Southwest and Mall. She's always out there for registration, education. I know y'all met Tasha. She's out. She's another one of those people. I invite them to come, just to come, because I've been trying to come. I always tell her I'm on my way, and I never make it, but I'm here. I finally made it. The judge made sure I got here. But I'm going to say, how can we help you? Because we know the deal is going down. We know this lady was Republican, came in Democrat, and everybody loved, supported her, and now she's running against you. So what can this body do? For anybody who don't know, this is one of the strongest bodies that we have that's about getting things done. They're not about talk, and that's all. They're about talk and walk. So what can we do?
Well, I think that this person who's switched twice, it was basically about her. I want to be a judge, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm not going to be principled. I'm principled. you know, I've gotten negative criticism because I'm principled. And so in order for us to move forward, do you want someone that's gonna stick their finger up in the wind and make a determination on what they're gonna do based upon which way the wind is blowing? Or do you want someone that's gonna be principled in their own beliefs to make sure that we do the right thing? And to be honest with you, I don't think that person's gonna make it through their own primary. I don't think that's gonna happen. Because people are very unforgiving. If I decided I wanted to be a Republican tomorrow, how do you think
Out of state.
that's gonna go over with the voters in Dallas County?
And I think if you just advertise that fact, that ought to do it, because that's like, you know, a traitor.
Yeah, you know how I
Like
feel
you
about
said,
trade.
principles.
Right.
Yeah.
Develop a principle and stick with it.
Ms. Watkins?
Yeah.
But the question I have for you, when it comes to the leadership in your party, right, why is it they don't seem to be so they're outspoken in support of you?
That's a very good question. I can give you an intimate answer on that, and I don't think you go over everybody's head because they're not involved with the inside game of politics. So I just won't say anything about that.
Is that pretty much the same reason why we have a government shutdown today?
Yeah.
Same idea, right? Okay. Kind of figured it was.
Yeah.
Let's
So-
change it. How's that? Yes? Let's change it.
Let's change it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another question. Those of us who were working on the fracking issue in Dallas, in our efforts, it was revealed to us of corruption within City Hall. And I know it's not just an environmental issue. I know there's, I'm sure that wasn't the only time. What can citizens do? What can your office do about criminal behavior in City Hall? What recourses? I know that I think we did file a complaint about the CPC and that there was daisy chaining going on before a decision that, I forget his name, but the kind of facilitator or the chief person for the City Planning Commission was contacting folks on the CPC before a meeting was, or a decision was being made, telling them how to vote. And so we did file a complaint or a grievance against them. But there's a lot of us who feel that our City Hall does not represent us. And what kind of recourses can citizens have to challenge that?
So let me ask you this. You know, you need you guys to be honest with me. When I was going through this whole issue of contempt and supposing an FBI investigation, how many of you thought that I did something wrong? Be honest. Nobody?
I found it very confusing. I really didn't know what the claims were. I didn't know what, I didn't know what.
I'm from South Texas, they were after you.
That's all it was. That's pure and simple.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm in a friendly crowd.
It was an attempt to pin the tail.
Because there were people that actually thought that there was something done wrong.
It was clearly an attempt to pin the tail.
Yeah, and so,
Nothing else.
think about that. When you're looking at City Hall, I indicted a guy who's a multi-billionaire. He spent his money to disparage me and the DA's office. So you're talking about City Hall, and you want to bring criminal charges or complaints against folks that run City Hall. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be on the federal level to accomplish that. You can't do it on the county level.
Yeah.
And there's the Dallas Citizen Council who
Yeah.
supports a lot of this. And they have oodles of
Could you comment on whether it's really criminal activity or just ordinary influence of money? Which
That's
is
criminal.
It's a violation of law.
Yeah.
Period. The thing is, in City Hall, you'll find out that a lot of people believe in City Hall and have for a long time and still believe to this day that whatever they do behind doors that nobody finds out about is not illegal. And they make sure the doors are closed as often as they can.
You guys keep working.
Yes. I'm from South Texas again. when we moved up here, I want to apologize first. I mean, well, you said there's some good Republicans. Okay, we'll accept it, but, you know, I'm from the South. So my question is, I would come up here, is there ever an interchange between Hispanics and blacks? When I came up here, I tried, you know, hello, you know, hey, I'm an activist. My mom and my dad, you know, they died, you know, fighting the good fight, getting there in everybody's face, like Representative Carl Lewis said, get in the way. And I come up here and I try to say hello, you know, or something, you know, how's the politics? And everybody looks at me like, are you wired? Are you from, you know, it's suspiciously. And, you know, I find it kind of funny because we're all in the same boat fighting the same fight, you know, and I just, can you accept some of us?
No, I actually
because there's
do.
a lot of us that are loudmouth and we like to get the job done, really.
You know, I'm a new politician. I'm new. I've only been in office, it'll be 8 years in next year. But I have the same question that you have. Why? When we should be on the same team.
We should be fighting the same fight, you know, same sharp edges.
For whatever reason, I don't know the historical nature of why there's a fight against one another. Because if we're on the same team, we can't lose. We have the same issues. And so that's something that we're going to have to work through, and it's going to take new people to work through those, as opposed to the old guard.
I just find it like, you know, hey, I'm trying to, you know, because I know we got a clean house, you know.
Yeah.
So then we'll pick up the broom with y'all, you know, and then it's not because we're trying to get ahead. Like somebody said way down there in San Antonio, oh, they're trying to get ahead of us. No, we ain't.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to, you know, everybody in line is same room, you know. And I just want to put it out there because some of us do care, do want to fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll bring you some more.
Hey, I'm sorry, what's your name, ma'am?
Rodriguez, Mariana Rodriguez.
Mariana, I just want to say on that, I think there may be some stress and tension between, you know, some individuals, but when you look at the big picture, right, when you see the fight for having undocumented people become citizens, African Americans are on the same side. In the Congressional Black Caucus, all of them are voting in favor of giving rights to undocumented workers. The NAACP has supported that. So I think on a macro level, on the institutional level, the two communities recognize they're on the same side. In the last election, 72% of Latinos voted for President Obama. He wouldn't be elected without Latinos. Wouldn't happen. And we understand that. And if we're ever going to have a Latino president, they're going to need a lot of support from African Americans. We understand that. So I think there are some people who have maybe a kind of simplistic, oh, what are these people doing here? You have some of that. That's true. But I think on a more, like I said, macro level, institutional level, most African Americans understand their interests, and the interests of Latinos are very closely aligned, because we are all working people who are trying to survive in this system, which is basically against working people.
Well, you know, I'm sorry I'm hogging the conversation, but as far as the immigration issue, you know, like everybody likes to wrap themselves in the Bible. Isn't your Bible says there's enough for everybody? I tell everybody, you ain't taking nothing from nobody because there's enough for everybody.
Exactly.
You know, whether
right.
they're, I mean, I'm more scared of these Tea Partiers now. Tea Partiers,
That's
you know,
right.
that's what we should be scared of. You know, for one now, at least they're known, they're out in the open.
Yeah, the voter ID laws are for all of us. That's basically.
But you know, that's my theory. You know, I applaud these white people here because, like I said, it's I really am concerned because it makes you mad. My father fought for all this to get up here. Mr. Callis from Victoria, Texas, fought to get up here. The Bearfields, everybody, we moved forward together.
Sure.
But since you're here now, you got a good group to stay here and just continue fighting.
Because we're all in it.
Because we don't know no color, we just know win.
All color is all people, white people, Asian, we all need to be together, basically.
I think recently, didn't Mayor Rollins' office and the city have a conversation about race?
Yes.
And I know that in my neighborhood association, we talked about bringing that to our neighborhood association meeting. And with Dallas Peace Center, there are dialogues going on interracially, religion, those kinds of things. We need to just hook up with those organizations that do that kind of thing. But that's one thing I love about the progressive movement. We're about, justice is the bottom line, and nothing else matters, So, but there are organizations out there doing that, and if you're familiar with the conversation about race, that's one thing you can bring maybe to your neighborhood community meeting. There's always room for dialogue.
Well, good. Hey, I want to see the rest of the
This is William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, or follow us and get notices of all our videos. When visiting Madeleine Restaurant, tell them you want to make your reservations to the next Move On speaker date. Space is limited, so make your reservations early. Call 214-521-0183.